This is going to be a blind ranking that you are not going to want to miss. From most expensive to least expensive, which one's going to come out on top? Let's find out. What is going on, everybody? Nathan here with the Everyday Drinker, bringing us a brand new video. We always have this question: is high-priced, high-proof bottles of bourbon better than low-priced, high-proof bottles of bourbon? Well, today I find that out for you. If you guys are interested in this, make sure you guys stick around because this was an absolute fun one and it shocked the crap out of me. With the help of my Patreons, I took 5 of my high-priced, high-proof bourbons and put them up against 5 of my low-priced, high-proof bourbons to see which one of them would come out on top and also on the bottom. Well, you guys are probably wondering what bottles are in this blind. I'm about to tell you. Just note that secondary value is not considered in this. This is strictly MSRP, and we're going to be going from most expensive bottle all the way down to the cheapest. Bottle number 1 is going to be our Willett Family Estate Purple Top. This bottle is coming in at $300. Our second bottle is going to be the Russels Reserve 15 year. This bottle is valued at $250. Bottle number 3 is the Maker's Mark Cellar Aged, valued at $150. Bottle number 4 is going to be our George T Stagg, valued at $120. And bottle number 5 is going to be Jack Daniel's 12 year, valued at $90. So those were our 5 high-priced, high-proof bottles of bourbons. Let's get into our 5 low-priced, high-proof bottles of bourbons. Bottle number 1 is going to be our Stagg Junior Store Pick. This is a value of $65. Bottle number 2 is Maker's Mark BEP, valued at $65. Bottle 3, Green River Full Proof, valued at $55. Bottle number 4 is going to be the Larceny B524, valued at $55. And bottle number 5 is 1792 Full Proof, valued at $50. Now you guys are wondering, how does this blind work? Well, I took into 3 factors: the nose, the palate, and the finish. Now the nose score is a 1 out of 5. The palate score is 1 out of 10, and the finish score is 1 out of 10 as well. Decimal points are included only to the 10th. Now, make sure you guys drop this like, leave a comment down below on which one of these 10 bottles of bourbons you think is going to win, and smash that subscribe button. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers, and I want every single one of you to be a part of it when we hit that big milestone. One more thing, if you guys want to be part of these polls, join in on the Discord and stuff like that, be part of barrel picks, sample giveaways, and things along those lines, make sure you guys go check that link down below to the Patreon. For as little as $2 a month, you help support me and the channel to be able to do fun videos like this, and I always love having my Patreon support for things like this. Now, you guys are probably wondering which one of these came in 10th and which one came in first. Well, let's get into 10th place. With a nose score of 4.6, a palate score of 6.7, and a finish of 6.1 with a grand total score of 17.4, we've got Maker's Mark Cellar Aged. With the nose of this bottle, I was like, holy cow. I legitimately wrote down, wow. I thought that this thing was incredible straight off of the bat, and I was very disappointed once it hit my mouth. On the nose, I was like saying fudgy, brownie, chocolatey, mapley. It was so thick and so wonderful and rounded and bold. But then when I took that first sip, I was very, very disappointed. Maker's Mark Cellar Aged is a great bottle on its own, but when you put it up against other heavy hitters, it seems to always fall flat. This is a bottle that I'm glad I was able to get my hands on, but would I pick up a second bottle? Probably not. Now, even though Maker's Mark Cellar Aged came in 10th place, it still has a soft spot in my heart, but I guess you guys want to know what came in 9th place, so let's find out right now. With a nose score of 3.0, a palate score of 7.9, and a finish of 7.9, and a grand total score of 18.8, we had 1792 Full Proof. Now, this is a bottle that I absolutely love. Again, it's another bottle that is so great on its own. I put down warm sugar cookie, cinnamon spice. There was a little bit of that proof on the nose, but then there was a really, really nice, soft banana note that rolled out of that nose and that glass that was really, really prominent in my personal opinion. Then on the palate, it was sweet, had a light caramel. orange marmalade was one of those things that really rolled out of this that I was a big fan of. And then on the finish, you know, we also had a nice score of a 7.9 on the finish for this. There was nothing in this bottle that really wowed me and made me think, wow, this is fantastic. But on the other side of that, there was nothing on that finish that was like, wow, this is not a good bottle. So it got a very nice, generous score on both of those due to the fact that there was nothing that was off-putting on this, but solely due to the fact that there was nothing wowing me on this. That is why it had that score of 18.8 and nothing higher, and it got 9th place. Let's find out what came in 8th place. With a nose score of 3.9, a palate score of 8.0, and a finish score of 7.2 with a grand total score of 19.1, we had the Jack Daniel's 12-year coming in 8th place. Now, on the nose, I said super sweet oak was really nice and abundant in that. It was darker. I could get lost in the sauce. I wrote that down. Why? I don't know. It was very pleasant. There was nothing off-putting about this, and there were just some really nice lingering dark fruit notes. This was a bottle that on the nose, I was really pleased with that score of 3.9. And on the palate with an 8.0, that's a really generous score. It had bready notes. It was dark fruits. It had a little bit of a strange oak that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but it wasn't bitter. It was just like a little bit of a mustiness. There was banana bready quality on this that was really nice, and then dark raisins finished out that palate. And then into the finish, we had a lingering spice with a nice oakiness, but not very proofy. So I caught that. At 107 proof, we were able to catch that it wasn't super proofy, and it has something that I'm not a fan of on the linger. But because of that dropped that finish score down to a 7.2. I would imagine if that one thing that I wasn't a fan of, I think it was that mustiness from off of the initial palate, just brought that down a little bit. This definitely could have had a little bit of a higher score. Even if that finish stayed with that proof score of 8.0, we would have had a really nice high-end score bottle of Jack Daniel's here, but we had other heavy hitters that just came out on top. Now, I do know you guys are probably wondering, how long did I wait in between each sample? I waited approximately 20 minutes before I went into the next glass to give my mouth and my palate a complete rewind. I had crackers, I had water, so I was eating this and I was going into this completely blind, and I wanted each sample to be in its best possible way. So I hope you guys are understanding of that. Now, let's find out what came in 7th place. With a nose score of 4.3, a palate score of 8.2, and a finish score of 7.1, and a grand total of 19.6, we had the Maker's Mark BEP. Yes, the Maker's Mark BEP beat out the Maker's Mark Cellar Aged, and this is a bottle that, you know, coming in at $65 and beating out some of those other heavy hitters, in my personal opinion, was an absolute bombshell of a bottle. On the nose, I was getting a cherry punch, a grape jam, a little bit of a cola-esque quality off of this, and it smelled thick. It was very viscous off of that nose. And then it was a darker than the previous pours. I was able to recognize that this had a little bit more of a richness coming out of that nose. And into the palate, it had a beautiful sweetness, coats the entire tongue. I wrote that down. I was like, this thing is thick. And then it was soft and buttery, and then there was no harshness on this at all, and that's why that score was 8.2, because this was so lovely. And then on the finish, we had a 7.1. So for me, it was a little bit of a youthful body. It wasn't really like, wow, this is a dark, aged, deep, like oak forward bottle, and you know, it lacked strong fruit, and that's why I thought on the finish it was a little lacking off of that initial beautiful palate. That's why it got dropped out a little bit, but still catching that 7th place spot. We've got the Maker's Mark BEP. Let's find out what came in 6th place. With a nose score of 3.4, a palate score of 7.9, and a finish score of 8.5, and a grand total score of 19.8, we had the Green River foolproof. Now this was one that really shocked me. I love this bottle so much. When, you know, for $55, you can't go wrong with this bottle right here. If you can get Green River foolproof, after I did the review, I knew that this bottle had something special about it, and it beat out some heavy hitters in this blind. Off of the nose, I was getting a little bit of an ethanol forwardness, but that tailed off very quickly because it just came out of that glass, and I was getting a really nice dark brown sugar note, and then a nice light oak because this is a blend of different aged barrels. There was a grape soda-esque quality that I really enjoyed that I found, and then really nice lemon peel. It ended off with a nice citrus touch that really I found beautiful in there. And into the palate, I wrote down very approachable. Now this is 117.3 proof. I didn't get that proof off of the palate that I got off of that initial nose, which is really pleasant. And then it was sweet. There was nothing that was really abundant off of this, but the sweetness I really liked. And then not a lot of burn. I wrote that down again. It was just not a lot of burn, just a lot of sweetness and enjoyability factors in this bottle that I really enjoyed. On the finish though, 8.5, we got a high finish on this because it was long, it was creamy, it was viscous, it dried my tongue out, it saturated my tongue, it did so many different things in my tongue that I really enjoyed off of the finish on this bottle here. And I got a little bit of a tobacco note that, you know, I don't find a lot of the times, but when I do, I love it so much. And this had a little light tobacco note that, man, that put it into the next category for me and almost got that score of a 20, but still 19.8 is a great score for a low-priced, high-proof bottle of bourbon in my personal opinion. Now we're getting into the top 5, and I guess you guys really want to know what those are, so let's get into it. Bottle number 5 was one of those bottles that really freaking wowed me off of the initial nose with a score of 3.0. On the palate, we had a score of 8.5, and then on the finish, this is where this bottle really took it home with a score of 9.1, with a grand total score of our first bottle over 20 points with a score of 20.6. And that is going to go to Larceny batch B524. I've told you guys about this bottle before, and it is scrumptious. I'm going to say that again. It is scrumptious. Coming in with a proof of 125.4. This is possibly one of the best Larceny batch releases in quite a freaking while. On the nose, I got a little bit of a heat punch that really, you know, if that heat wasn't on the nose, that nose score could have been a little bit higher, because that's why that nose score is a 3.0. And I had a really nice sweet cinnamon, but again, I wrote down lots of burn. I was getting really nothing off of this on the nose. I was just getting a lot of cinnamon and that burn. But then in the palate, we got notes of vanilla icing. Sweet, lovely sweet. That's what I wrote down. I'm reading you guys what I wrote down. And thick with a capital K. Thick. Because this bad boy right here was thick. We had high proof, but does not burn at all. I knew that this was a higher proofer compared to some of those other ones, but there was no burn on the palate, where I was finding that burn on the nose. And on the finish, it was just a long residual sweetness that just like coated your tongue. It was almost like you were tasting the actual sugar grains. It was lovely. I wrote down it dried the tongue out, but at the end, it just like made you want to keep going back in for more. It was so lovely and makes me want more is the last thing I wrote down, because this bad boy right here made me want to keep going back. And that's why the Larceny B524 is a scrumptious bottle of bourbon. And everybody here should be able to get one of these. But let's get into fourth place. Our fourth place bottle was not showing up with the nose with a score of 2.9, but man, was it a heavy hitter on the palate and finish. Our palate score was an 8.6, and our finish score was a 9.2, with a grand score of 20.7, and it was just edging out that Larceny B524, and that bottle is none other than our Stagg Jr. store pick. Now, I had the notion that this could possibly be the best bottle of bourbon on my shelves, and you know, I was wrong. You know, we still got 3 more bottles that are ahead of this bad boy that are so darn good. And you guys know what those three bottles are, right? It's the Russels 15, it's the Willett Purple Top, and it's the George T Stagg. You guys are gonna have to find out which placements those bottles are in, but let's talk about the Stagg Junior Store pick. Again, on the nose, I give it a score of a 2.9. It was dry, very dry oak, almost charred sawdust is what I wrote down. Proof. I got a lot of that proof because this is 137.9 proof. I think it was the highest proof whiskey that we had on the in the blind. And then I got a cherry punch to the face. It was just really rich and just really just something that was standoffish from this bottle. But then on the palate with a strong score of an 8.6, I said I want this to stay in my mouth forever. I wrote that down. I want this to stay in my mouth forever. It was wonderful. Lip smacking good. Creme brulee, caramel candy, and just so sweet and just confectionery and cherry. It was wonderful on the palate. And then into the finish with a score of a 9.2. It was even better on the finish. It just lingered. Boom, I wrote down. Heavy, stays sweet throughout, what you want, and it is not proofy going into that finish. And man, this Stagg Store pick is wonderful. I'm lucky to have it, but I was wrong. It's not the best bottle of bourbon on my shelves. We're gonna find out what came in third place right now. Our third place bottle had a nose score of 3.6, a palate score of 8.3, and a finish of 9.0, just edging out by 0.2 points our previous bottle. We've got George T Stagg, the 2023 edition, getting a grand total score of 20.9. Now, this was incredible. I will tell you that again. Incredible. It was one of the first sips I had from what I remember off of my letters. Wonderful pour. On the nose, I was getting vanilla icing, stronger ethanol, but that rolled out of that glass because we're getting a bottle of bourbon that's 135 proof. I was getting orange peels and orange marmalade, cherry-ish. Not a lot of that cherry punch that you get off of this, but I was getting a deep Coca-Cola almost nose that was rolling out of that. Wonderful nose. And then on the palate with 8.3, it coats everything is what I wrote down. Beautiful oak, molasses, black freaking cherry with dark dry chocolate and a rich dense oak. And then going into the finish with a score of 9.0, extremely long dark brown sugar, and cherry Coke is the lingering factor that I really loved about this. And then it was just an abundance of sweetness that just stayed through the entire bottle experience that I absolutely loved. And that's by George T Stagg. Got third place. Let's find out what came in second place. Our second place bottle had magnificent scores throughout with a nose score of 4.2, a palate score of 8.3, and a finish of 8.5 with a grand total of 21.0. We've got Russell's Reserve 15-year. Absolutely wonderful bottle of bourbon. We already did our review. We already did a blind with it, but I wanted to see what it could do against other bottles of bourbon in this caliber. And man, oh man, this bottle did not disappoint at all. Nose, charred oak, almost smoky in a way, but it wasn't campfire-y. It was really dense, super rich, caramelized brown sugar, leathery notes, espresso, really beautiful, cinnamon icing, really sweet, but then sweet with some spice. Just really well balanced. Something that, I've said a couple of times about this bottle in other groups and stuff like that. This is not a beginner bourbon drinker's bourbon. This is an experienced bottle of bourbon that for an experienced bourbon drinker, and this is going to turn off a lot of newer bourbon drinkers because they don't know what they're trying to find in this thing because it's so well just like balanced and deep. It's so good. On the palate with a score of 8.3, we had sweet, dense, dark, oaky, dry, tannic, but not overwhelming in that boat. And then viscous, super thick, no burn, super enjoyable. And then the finish, rounding that out with an 8.5, high score there. Dry oak lingers, but gives campfire without the smoke. So you're getting that campfire-y note note on the nose, which also transferred into the finish. And then the oak leaves surprisingly pleasant throughout with a lingering sweetness. This was incredible. Russels 15. You know, this is probably a bottle that, you know, at $250, I might end up getting a backup of if I can get it at that price, because this is bunker worthy in my personal opinion. Now, you guys already know what came in first place, but without further ado, let's find out what came in first place. With a score that blew everything out of the water, we had a nose score of 4.3, a palate of 9.0, and a finish of 9.3 with a grand total of 22.6. This bottle right here blew out second place by almost a point and a half, or it did. This is the Willett Family Estate Purple Top NJ Selection Thunder Road. It is a 10-year bottle number 4026. This is an original mash bill of the Willett, and it's coming in at 129.6 proof. I'm so lucky to have this bottle. On the nose, I was getting dark molasses with sweet and soft cinnamon. It was a cinnamon roll. It was so dense in that it was like you were getting the charred sweetness, the sugar and cinnamon off of the bottom of like a Cinnabon, that juicy, just, oh, so delicious. It was so nice on the nose, and man, did that transfer so pleasantly into the palate. It was so sweet, honey, dark and rich in those aspects. It was thick, it was lingering, it was mapley, it was espresso-like. And then I wrote down something that, you know, I really don't get a lot of the time. I got Demerara sugar. It was so dense in that aspect that, you know, it wasn't the molassesy, but it was that darker style sugar, but it wasn't the molasses. And on the finish, I just wrote, let me tell you, wow, 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 lingers, wow, forever. Soft, sweet, thick, sits forever. Such sweet baking spices. Finish is incredible. Lingers forever. That's what you want in a bottle of bourbon, right? Something that, you know, there is nothing about that bottle that makes you question what that is, because not even knowing what it was, this, in my personal opinion, when I was going in that blind, was, you know, something that I was worried about, and this solidified my judgment and my lack for no caution on buying this $300 bottle. You know, is everybody's most expensive bottle going to come out on top in a blind? Probably not. I just happened to get that lucky in this blind with this bottle coming out on top. It's an incredible bottle. Again, let's bring out every single bottle in their respective order. So here you guys have it. From first place to last place, we had the Willett Family Estate Russels Reserve 15-year George T Stagg, just edging out a Stagg Junior store pick. Larceny Batch B524, Green River Full Proof, Makers Mark BEP, Jack Daniel's 12-year, the 1792 Full Proof, followed by our last placed winner of last place, the Maker's Mark Cellar Age. Let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this style video, because this was an absolute fun one for me. Make sure you guys drop that like, leave that comment down below, smash that subscribe button, check out that Patreon. Until next time, this has been Nathan with the Everyday Drinker. Cheers.